My name is Kimberly Cole. Not many people know that name. In small towns, people don't recognize each other by name, but by where they work. For years, I was simply known as the girl who works at the store in the mall. Now, looking back, I don't think that was a coincidence. Our town is one of those places that's hard to find on a map. You turn off the state highway, drive a few kilometers, the pine trees grow denser, and at some point, a concrete structure appears. That is the town's only shopping mall. Not big, not impressive, but always open, always there. I worked there for 6 years. I was 12 years old when my family died. One evening, my mother and father never made it home. They said it was an accident. In small towns, accidents are talked about a lot, but forgotten quickly. For me, it was never forgotten. From that day on, I lived with my grandfather, Arvin Cole. Arvin suffered from Alzheimer's. In the early stages, he only forgot his keys. Then he began mixing up days. Eventually, places. Every morning before I left for work, he would ask me the same question. Are you going to that place with the demons again today? At first, I laughed it off. Then I got used to it. But I never learned to like that sentence. Because he never said the shopping mall. He never said the store. He always called it the place with the demons. That morning was no different. Double quotes, "Yes, Grandpa," I said. "I'm going there," he nodded. For a brief moment, his eyes became unusually clear. Then he stared back into the emptiness again. The first thing I learned when I arrived at the store that day was that my manager, Rebecca Rain, was on annual leave. That was rare. Rebecca liked control. She never left the store without oversight. But that day, everything was left to me. It stressed me more than usual. I felt as if I were carrying a responsibility that didn't truly belong to me. Throughout the day, there was a strange stillness in the shopping mall. There were very few people. The footsteps of those who walked echoed too loudly. Even the background music sounded muffled, distorted in my ears. Toward the evening, I stepped out of the store to use the restroom, and the moment I entered the corridor, I felt that something was wrong. Most of the stores were closed. Their shutters were down. Some of the lights were turned off. I checked my watch. It wasn't closing time yet. At the end of the corridor, I saw a security guard. His face was pale. His eyes looked exhausted. "Why are the other stores closed?" I asked. He looked at me, paused for a moment. "The clocks were set back," he said. "They were turned back 1 hour." I was surprised. "We weren't notified." He frowned. "Normally you are," he said. "They said they distributed a written notice to every store as well." That sentence sank into me heavily because I hadn't seen any notice. I was certain of it. I went back to the store. I sent the staff home immediately. I stayed behind alone. I closed the register. I turned off the lights. Just as I was about to leave, a sound came from the lower floor. Something metallic was scraping against another surface. Then came muffled voices, unclear but undeniably human. My mind immediately went to the renovation area on the -1 floor. Something had been going on down there for weeks. But the unease inside me didn't fade. I went to the exit door. I pushed it. It didn't open. I tried again. The door was locked. My heart started racing. I looked for the security guard. He was nowhere to be seen. I tried calling him, no answer. I thought there might be an emergency exit in the renovation area downstairs. I had no other choice. As I went down the stairs, I realized I was counting every single step. The closer I got to the lower level, the colder the air became. The smell of concrete and dampness grew heavier, and then there was a red light dot. It was leaking out from the renovation area. It wasn't steady. It flickered slightly. I stepped inside, and I saw them. A group of people dressed in black robes, at least 6 of them. In the center, a woman was kneeling. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't crying. Her eyes were open, but it was as if she wasn't really there. One of them was murmuring something in a low voice. The others had their heads bowed. I tried to step back. My foot struck a metal pipe on the floor at the sound. They all turned toward me at once. The person in the center pointed at me. 2 of them charged. I ran just as I reached the stairs. I felt a violent blow to the back of my head, and the world went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on a cold surface. My face was pressed against concrete. I could still feel its roughness against my cheek. For the first few seconds, I couldn't tell where I was. My ears were ringing. My back burned with pain, sharp like a fresh cut. Instinctively, I didn't move. I pretended to be unconscious. My heart was pounding wildly, but I forced myself to breathe slowly. I tried to keep my chest from rising and falling. Then I realized something that made my fear even worse. My hands weren't bound. There were no ropes, no cuffs, no pressure around my wrists. It wasn't comforting. Quite the opposite. The fact that my hands were free made me realize this wasn't forgetfulness. It was intention. They hadn't tied me up because they didn't need to. I cracked my eyes open slightly. No one was watching me. The footsteps had moved away. The whispers were gone. I knew then if I didn't escape now, I never would. Slowly, I rolled onto my side. I braced my elbows against the floor and pushed myself up. I remember my knees shaking. When I stood, my head spun, but I didn't stop. I ran. I nearly fell as I climbed the stairs. My breath burned in my throat. The sound of my footsteps thundered in my ears. When I reached my store, I rushed inside and locked the door. I leaned against it. My legs could no longer hold me. I looked around. The fire extinguisher caught my eye right where it always was. Something I could use to protect myself. I remember grabbing it. I remember the door opening. I remember swinging with all my strength at the silhouette entering the room. The dull, heavy sound of metal hitting flesh. The man stumbling backward. But I can't see his face. It's as if my mind deliberately blurred that moment. Then I felt another blow to my head. Pain exploded. My vision collapsed. Everything blurred, and I fell to the floor. Through a loud ringing, I heard voices, but I couldn't understand the words. It sounded like they were speaking a different language altogether. And then, suddenly, I heard a familiar voice, the voice of the person dragging me across the floor. It was terrifyingly familiar. When I forced my eyes open just a little, I recognized the face of our store manager. Then my vision slipped away again, and the world went dark once more. When I opened my eyes, I realized I was sitting upright. I was inside the store. I had been placed neatly on one of the chairs meant for customers, as if someone had deliberately positioned me there. My feet were on the floor. My hands rested on my knees. Everything was clean. There was no trace of what had just happened. No mess, no blood. Nothing broken. The store looked exactly as it always did. The lights were on. I could hear people outside. I stood up. My head was still spinning. There was no pain, no swelling on my head, but I walked unsteadily. I went downstairs, to the place where everything had happened, and I was met with a sight that left me frozen. The renovation area was gone. In its place stood a store with gleaming windows. Its sin already hung, ready for opening. The walls were freshly painted. There wasn't a single stain on the floor. I started to think I had imagined everything. After all, my grandfather had Alzheimer's. Was something wrong with me too? Had I hallucinated it all? I asked myself that question over and over. That's when my phone rang. It was Rebecca. Why did the store open late? She asked that there was not the slightest hint of strangeness in her voice. She sounded completely unaware of what had happened the night before. I was delayed, I said. I apologized. I told her I wasn't feeling well, that I could barely wake up and hadn't even made it to the hospital. The words spilled out of my mouth automatically. She told me this couldn't happen again. The call ended. I left the store to the staff. I said I had a headache, that I wasn't feeling well. No one objected. When I got home, the exhaustion I felt wasn't like normal sleeplessness. It had sunk into my bones. I lay down on the bed. I closed my eyes, but my back was burning. Slowly, I reached behind me. I felt the exact spot where the pain was coming from. I stood up and went to the mirror. I took off my shirt. There was a thin, distinct scratch on my back. It hadn't bled. It hadn't scabbed over, but it was there as I stared at my reflection. The last bit of hope inside me disappeared, because in that moment, I understood what I experienced that night was not a nightmare. It was not a hallucination. It was not my mind playing tricks on me. Everything was real. In that moment, I realized my grandfather had been right all along. When he spoke of demons, he was never wrong. I never worked at that shopping mall again. I didn't even go there to shop. But on some nights, when I pass through town, I still see its lights on. And I know this, when the lights go out, that place is never empty. Thank you for listening to this story. If it affected you, don't forget to leave a comment and share your thoughts. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story. See you in the next one.